And there we go. And this recording is going to be made available to our youth in Lake County. So the Lake County Office of Education is one of our partners on this project, and they will be offering it to our youth. So we all get the fun live experience, but the experience will keep going after tonight. So as we're at 5:29, I think this is a good time to start to introduce our speaker and tour guide for the night, and also Michael Chandler, the lead of this project. So I'll start with Michael Chandler. And yeah, so he is the owner of Third Eye Visuals, and he's been doing this really cool 3D capturing, both inside of Lake County and outside of Lake County. We call him the Wizard of Oz behind it all. And yeah, Michael, do you want to just say a word or two about what drives your passion behind the 3D virtual field trips?
I've always really been into photography, and when this technology came out, I just saw a really great need for it. Much rather than doing real estate, I wanted to do something fun with it. And there's a lot of people here in Lake County that won't ever get to go to a lot of these places, so I wanted to bring these places to them out
Are
here.
you Mr. Wang? Super, I'm Lisa. Welcome to camp.
So yeah, and I had a chance to work out at the Point Arena Lighthouse before the pandemic. I was a tour guide docent out there, and Mark gave me the chance to scan this and turn one of my dreams into a reality here. And I'm really happy that we're getting to do this and get to preserve some really cool spaces and bring them out to people that might not get to see them.
Nice. And Michael, we did hear a note that it's a little bit hard to hear you. So if you're able to get a little bit closer to your mic. Yeah. Okay. Well, thanks, Mike. And now, without further ado, we will ask everyone to mute themselves as we're just getting started. You'll be welcome to unmute and ask a question throughout the tour. But now, without further ado, we are introducing our tour guide for the evening, and that is Mark Hancock. Thank you very much for being with us. He is the executive director of the Point Arena Lighthouse. He has been for the last 6 years. And it's really exciting to hear that actually his 96-year-old mother's dream job was to be a lighthouse keeper. So he is fulfilling the family dream. And yeah, and sharing that with us here. He said it's the best job that he's ever had, and he's extremely knowledgeable about the Point Arena Lighthouse. So thank you for being with us, Mark, for this Year of Youth 3D virtual field trip and the kickoff of our series. So without further ado, take it away.
Well, I really appreciate, Amanda, this opportunity, and I really thank Mike for his absolute amazing creativity and reaching out to you to make this available to the youth of Lake County. And it's exciting for me to be able to provide a virtual tour of the place that for the last 6 years I've been responsible for, and that I have grown to really love and appreciate. Excuse me. So the Point Arena Lighthouse is actually 151 years old this year. Unfortunately, as you can do the math, we were 150 years old last year, but we were also shut down because of COVID. And we had a number of special events that we had planned to celebrate our 150th year of lighting the way on the Mendocino coast, but they all had to be canceled. So we've done a few what we call 150+1 events since then. But truly, the Point Arena Light Station is an icon of the Mendocino coast, and it is owned and operated and maintained by the Point Arena Lighthouse Keepers Incorporated, which is a nonprofit that was formed in 1982 when the Coast Guard was actually going to shutter the entire property and put up chain link fence and concertina wire to keep people out and just let it go to seed. And the local community got together and said, you know, you really can't do this. This is a part of our history and an icon of this coastline. And we believe people would want to come and see it. So the nonprofit was formed, and they got a 20-year land lease from the Coast Guard and the Department of Transportation, and started doing tours of the tower, and converted the fog signal building into a museum and a gift store, and converted the 4 lightkeepers' homes into vacation rentals. And lo and behold, we were right. People did come out, they stayed with us. Many people have brought their families for 20, 30 years and stayed at the lighthouse, built many, many memories. And in the year 2000, the Coast Guard and the Department of Transportation deeded the entire 23 acres, all buildings and structures, over to us. Of course, they gave us this much money. So as a nonprofit, we are eternally grateful to all of the people who come and visit us, upward of 50,000 visitors a year, the people who stay in our 7 vacation cottages, people who become members, those who make donations to us. It all helps us to keep the light shining in what is now our 151st year. And I have a tendency to go plowing right along when I'm doing a tour. So I want to encourage any of you, if you have any questions, as I'm telling you about this wonderful place where I work, to please interrupt, and Amanda will put a halt to my tour, and I will be happy to answer any questions that come up. So does anyone have any questions now before we get started?
I don't have a question, but I'm remiss as I did not introduce myself. I just realized. So I'm Amanda Martin, and I am the chair of this year's youth project for the Lake County Chamber of Commerce. Just realized I needed to introduce myself. So thank you for letting me slide that in there, Mark. And now let's open it back up to any questions for him.
All right, so I am being ably assisted by Michael Chandler, who is the amazing artist who created all the visuals that you're going to be enjoying. We are standing at the entrance to the Fog Signal Building, and the Fog Signal Building was actually finished in 1896, so it survived the earthquake of 1906. And it currently houses our light station store and our indoor museum. And what I'd like to do is take you inside the museum and start our tour by looking at the incredible work of art that serves as the centerpiece of our museum, which is the first order Fresnel lens that was in the tower that we'll be climbing a little bit later, from 1908 until 2008. And that incredible work of art is what you're looking at right now. And it is a first order Fresnel lens, which is the largest of the Fresnel lenses. And it's named after Augustin-Jean Fresnel, who was a French physicist who came up with the concept of using prisms to bend light into concentrated beams that could travel long distances. This lens was in the tower from 1908 until 2008, and it was operational from 1908 until 1977. When it was initially put into the tower back in 1908, it was basically a big candle. So it was fueled by kerosene, and there was a Funks hydraulic vapor lamp inside of it, which had 8 concentric wicks inside of a tube, and it drew the kerosene up, and they would light those wicks, and it would put out 16,000 lumens. And with that light source, it cast a beam that was visible 21.5 miles out to sea. And the signature of the Point Arena Lighthouse, while this was the operational light, was a double white flash every 6 seconds. So every lighthouse on a given coastline has a unique signature. That way, if you're out to sea, you know where you are, and hopefully you know what you need to do to get where you're going. So the way that they made this do a double white flash every 6 seconds was to rotate that lens once every 18 seconds. So when you were in the focal point of the double bullseye that you see there, you would get a flash, and then you get 6 seconds of darkness until the next set of bullseyes came around, and you get the flash. And that went on all night long, and then they shut it off during the day. And the way that they made that 4,700-pound lens rotate so precisely is over in the other corner of the museum. And it is called a mercury bath and drive system. And that big green machine right there used to have that 4,700-pound lens sitting on top of that shaft at the very top of it. And inside that drum that Michael was just highlighting with his circles was 5.3 gallons of mercury. And if you remember your middle school science class, or when you get into your middle school science class for you kids on the Zoom, mercury has two unique properties. It doesn't compress and it's virtually frictionless. So that big 4,700-pound lens literally rode on a liquid bearing of mercury. And it was such an efficient mechanism that Bill Owens, who was our longest serving civilian lightkeeper, he raised 6 daughters out at the light station. And they talk about when they were little girls, he would take them out to the lighthouse and hold them up underneath that lens on top of that mercury bath. And with their little 6, 7, 8-year-old hands, they could go like that, and that 4,700-pound lens would turn. Now, of course, he didn't have his little girls up there all night long going like that to turn the lens. There were 2 assistant keepers who were responsible for turning a crank at the base of the mercury bath and drive system. And that crank would draw a cable up with a 160-pound weight at the end of it. And they would have to turn that crank for 10 minutes every 75 minutes to draw that weight up the center of the tower. And then for the next 75 minutes, the weight would drop down, the mechanism would turn, and you get the double white flash every 6 seconds. So basically, the original Point Arena Lighthouse was a grandfather clock and a candle. Up until 1929, when, to the great delight of the lightkeepers, they brought electricity out to the light station. So instead of having the candle, they had a 1,000-watt bulb. It still reached 21.5 miles out to sea. And the turning of the crank was replaced with a 1/8 horsepower motor. And that's all that was needed to keep that beautiful lens spinning for the next 49 years. So then in 1977, the Coast Guard decided to decommission this as the active light, and they replaced it with a rotating beacon that was mounted outside of the lantern room. And at that point, our signature became what it is today, which is a single white flash every 15 seconds. In 2003, the state of the art for large coastal lights was a VRB-25. And that's what the Coast Guard installed, and that's what Michael is showing you right now. It has 6 Fresnel lens panels inside of it that slowly rotate around, wait for it, a 35-watt bulb, and it was visible 19 miles out to sea, and it was on 24 hours a day. About 6 years ago, they took that out, gave it to us for the museum, and installed what is up there today, which is a VLB-44. And it is about this tall and about that big around, and it looks like 8 glass pancakes, and it's full, of course, of LEDs, and it reaches 14 miles, and it draws 85 watts, but only when it flashes. But it flashes 24 hours a day. So I'm not sure whether technology is marching forwards, backwards, or sideways, but I think that first order Fresnel lens is the most awesome light we've ever had out here. So we are actually going to be climbing up the 3rd lighthouse that's been out here on the peninsula in the last 151 years. The first light station was completed and first lit on May 1st, 1870. And we're going to show you a picture of it in just a moment. So I'm going to give Michael a chance to get over to where the picture is. You could do the image that you had earlier, Mike. Oh, there we go. There we go. So that is the original lighthouse. And you'll notice it has more of that traditional flared bottom look that you're used to with lighthouses. That's because in the 1800s, large coastal lights were made either out of brick and mortar or stone and mortar. So that was a brick and mortar lighthouse. And that big building you see in front of it was a 4-plex, also brick and mortar, that housed the 4 lightkeepers and their families, sometimes up to 24 people at a time. It also housed only one single kitchen that they all had to share. Well, April 18th, 1906, you're probably all familiar with the ground shaking event that happened here in Northern California. The San Andreas Fault is about 4 miles east of the Point Arena Light Station. And on that morning, it moved 16 feet laterally. So you can imagine what that did to brick and mortar buildings in and around Point Arena. They were all either damaged or destroyed. Both of the buildings, the tower and the lightkeepers' quarters, were damaged in the earthquake, but the tower itself didn't fall down. And we're going to be climbing up one of the probable reasons it didn't. There was a wrought iron circular staircase that went up the center of the tower, kind of like a backbone. So even though the top of the tower flexed about 5 feet to the north and 5 feet to the south for 45 seconds to a minute during the earthquake, according to the lightkeeper who was up there when it happened, it didn't come down, but the damage was significant enough they decided it would be better to build a new tower than to try to replace the old one. However, San Francisco was rebuilding itself from the earthquake and more devastatingly, the fire that followed it, with all of the beautiful lumber we have up in Humboldt and Mendocino counties. And back at the turn of the 20th century, the only way to get that lumber from Humboldt, Mendocino down to San Francisco was by ship. And those ships needed to have their aids to navigation to help safely get back and forth. So we erected a temporary tower, which is in the picture that you're seeing to the right. And it looks kind of like a water tank. And that lantern room might look a little bit familiar from the picture of the first tower because it is the lantern room from the first lighthouse. Even though the lens inside was destroyed by the earthquake shaking, the lantern room held on. And you'll see why when we get up into the lantern room. It's one substantial piece of engineering. So they put that lantern room on top of the tower. They imported a third order lens from Europe and turned the light on until the current tower was done. And then they took that lantern room off of the temporary tower, put it on top of the current tower, assembled that beautiful Fresnel lens inside of it from the 28 handmade sections that came around Cape Horn from Paris, France, sitting on top of that big Mercury bath and drive system. And on September 15th, 1908, we began sending out our signature double white flash every 6 seconds. So that's a little bit about the lens technology in the first 2 towers. Does anyone have any questions before I continue?
Yes, I have a question. Did you have a backup for the electrical motor in the event of losing power?
That's an excellent question, Juan. And I actually am not sure because that predates the time that I was here. That would have been when the Coast Guard was running the light station. My assumption is that they would have had some sort of backup, but I can't categorically state that. Any other questions?
Thank you.
Oh, no problem. So the building that we're currently in is called the Fog Signal Building. And in that picture that Michael has, or had just a moment ago, over to the right, that was the building we were looking at. So it was finished in 1896. So it obviously predated the earthquake. Obviously, it was also still standing. That's because it's made out of old growth redwood, not brick and mortar. So it probably shook and shimmied during the earthquake, but it held on just fine. And it's called the Fog Signal Building because it used to house the machinery that powered the foghorns that were out on the bluff until 1975, when the Coast Guard pretty much did away with coastal foghorns and they replaced them with radio beacons. But up until that time, we had foghorns out there. And those 2 big black trumpets that you see in the corner are the last of the foghorns. And the foghorns also have a signature. And the signature of our foghorns was a 5-second blast every 25 seconds. And it went out to the tune of 165 decibels. So nobody ever wanted to be on the trumpet end of those horns. That big black tank you see in the corner is the compressed air tank that powered those horns. And the compressor on the floor is what kept that tank filled up. But remember, we didn't get electricity out to the station until 1929. So before 1929 and going all the way back to that 1870 light station, the foghorns and before them, the fog whistles were powered by steam. So there was a big steam boiler in this room that had to be kept stoked up with wood so that they had sufficient steam pressure to sound off the foghorns when the fog rolls in, which it does fairly often up here. So your 2 nighttime keepers were carrying 5-gallon buckets of kerosene up the stairs about every 4 hours to keep the reservoir full. They were turning that crank for 10 minutes every 75 minutes to draw the weight up and keep the clockworks mechanism going. They were keeping a log of everything they saw, everything they did, and everything they used for the entirety of their shift. And they had to climb inside that lens every once in a while with a big pair of shears and trim down the wick so that the light stayed uniform. The 2 daytime keepers had the lovely job of cleaning all the kerosene film off of the 666 prism faces on the lens. And they had to keep that boiler stoked up with wood so that they could sound off the foghorns. And that big brick fourplex that they had was heated with wood, and they cooked with wood. So in addition to all of the things that the lightkeepers had to do as lightkeepers, the 4 of them also had to procure, transport, chop, and stack over 150 cords of wood a year. So our wall of lightkeepers is right below that great big panorama. None of those lightkeepers are fat, and you can imagine why not. So any other questions before we go out to the tallest lighthouse on the West Coast? Okay, so I'm going to have Michael lead us through the Light Station store, which is, by the way, the best gift shop on the Mendocino coast. We absolutely have wonderful, wonderful stuff. And now we are walking towards the tallest lighthouse on the West Coast. All right, so go down just a little bit so we can show the first step. Perfect. So that very first low yellow line that you see there is step number 1 of 145 steps that will take us to the top of the tallest lighthouse on the West Coast. And you're not going to have to do it manually because you're all sitting on your chairs and benches, et cetera, at home. There are 4 landings on the way up, and we'll be stopping at a couple of them to talk about how this was built. But one of the interesting things about this lighthouse and what makes it very unique is it is the first steel reinforced concrete lighthouse built in America. And it probably won't surprise you after looking at it that it was built by a San Francisco smokestack company, hence its straight up and down appearance. There are 500 cubic yards of concrete in this lighthouse, and it sits on top of an 8-foot deep concrete foundation. So why don't we go on inside, and I'll talk about what we call the buttress room. So right about here, we can stop. This is what's called the buttress room. So it is a 24-inch thick base that goes around the center core of the tower, and it serves to give it that stability that the flared bottoms of the brick and mortar lighthouses had. Excuse me. The base of the tower, where it sits upon the 8-foot deep foundation, is about 3 feet, and then it tapers up to 18 inches. And as we walk into the main core of the lighthouse, you can see that circular staircase. And that circular staircase is the original from the first tower, because in addition to the lantern room, which they reused, they also reused this wrought iron circular staircase. And if you were on the tour with me, I would point out to you that on the very first step, there's a maker's mark that says 1869. So as we virtually climb the tower, I want to remind all of you that you are climbing up 151 years worth of lightkeepers' footsteps to get to the top of the tallest lighthouse on the West Coast. So the Point Arena Lighthouse is 115 feet tall from the ground level. It is about 155 feet from the mean low tide line. And World War II pilots who flew along the coast report that they could actually see the light from up to 40 miles away. The 21.5 miles I referred to earlier was based upon seeing it from a ship out on the ocean. And the curvature of the earth actually would block the light from traveling before it would stop traveling. So this is a good area for us to see how this lighthouse was built. And it might be a little bit difficult, but if you look down on the bottom of the screen, there's like a horizontal line, and then about 3 feet up, there's another horizontal line. And you can probably see the impressions of the wood slats that were used for the forms. So this lighthouse was built using what's known as slip form construction. So they would build a frame on the inside, and then 18 inches out, they would build another frame on the outside. And then they would put the steel beams inside of the void between the two. Then they would hand mix the concrete in wheelbarrows, dump it in until they had filled up that void, let it set up, and then they would slip the forms up to the next level. And that's how this 115-foot tall tower was built. So now we're climbing up to the second landing. And does anyone want to have any questions at this point? Well, that's a little surprising, because I would have thought that the obvious question is, how did they get 500 cubic yards of concrete up that tower when it was all being mixed in wheelbarrows? And the answer to that question, which nobody asked, is Charlie the Mule. So there was a boom at the top of the tower that had a pulley system attached to it. And at one end of the pulley system was a platform that had 4 ropes at the 4 corners. And at the other end of the pulley system was Charlie the Mule. So they would mix the concrete up in wheelbarrows, and they would wheel those wheelbarrows onto the platform. And then somebody would get Charlie's attention with an apple or a carrot, and he would dutifully trudge off in pursuit of a treat he wasn't going to get. And they would stop him when he got to the right level, dump the wheelbarrows, and then they would back Charlie up. And that went on all during the day. Charlie was very well fed at the end of the day. And now we are climbing up onto the last landing level. And that is the door that leads into what's known as the watch room. And the watch room is where the Mercury Bath and Drive system used to sit. And we'll be getting up there in just a moment. So that round circle you see is pretty much the center of where the Mercury Bath and Drive system used to sit. And that little slot that's off to the left is where the cable used to travel up and down when it was a clockworks mechanism. And then off to your right, you can see the 9 steps that will take us to the best view on the Pacific coast.
So Mark, the folks are wondering why there isn't a statue of Charlie.
You know, what's funny about that is before COVID, we would do full moon night tours, which we will do again once we're able to do. And they are incredibly unique and incredibly wonderful. And one of our board members, Nick Kapanshin, put together a really, really in-depth and great slideshow. And one of the slides in that shows Charlie at the base of the tower, you know, hooked up and doing his thing. And then about 3 slides later, there's a picture of the crew that actually built the tower. And it's all these guys. And then in the center of the front row, there's a dog. And I always look at it and I tell people, Charlie was really pissed off that he wasn't part of the picture of the crew that built the place, because he had the biggest job of all. So we are now up in the lantern room, and you are surrounded by a 151-year-old structure. It is made out of brass and bronze. None of the glass is original, but all of the frame is original. And we are looking at what makes us an ATON. ATON stands for Aid to Navigation. And that is the VLB-44 I mentioned earlier, that is full of LEDs. And it flashes once every 15 seconds, 24 hours a day. And that's how sailors know that they are passing the Point Arena Light Station. There are a lot of amazing things that we can see from up here. But one of the things I want to point out is that lighthouses are primarily ATONs, aids to navigation, but they're also there to warn of potential hazards. And you can certainly see by looking out around the lantern room how many hazards there really can be around this point in Point Arena. But the biggest one is about a mile to the northeast, and it is called Arena Rock. And Arena Rock is the size of a football field, and it's only 6 feet deep underneath the ocean. And it's been responsible for over 100 shipwrecks since they started keeping track over 100 years ago. And that was one of the big reasons why they built this lighthouse back in the 1800s, was to help warn sailors of Arena Rock. One of the other things that you can see really, really well up in the tower that you can't see from ground level is what we call the Devil's Punch Bowl. And that is a big hole in the end of the peninsula. And I'm going to let Mike get to the point where you can really see it a little bit better. There we go. So on your right is what the Devil's Punch Bowl looked like back in 1880. Whoop, go back one. There we go. So look at the difference. That used to be completely surrounded by the earth. They actually used to do horses and buggies around there. And now, as you can see, there's a great big hole, great big V cut in the end. But one of the interesting things to me is if you look at the sea stacks out in the ocean today, and you compare them with the ones that are over in the 1880, they're virtually identical. So the bedrock of the land has held on. It's all the soft, loamy stuff up at the top that tends to go away. And to give you an idea of how quickly that can happen, this is what the Devil's Punch Bowl looked like about 16 years ago compared to what it looks like today. So out on our coastline, the ocean always wins. But fortunately, the lighthouse seems to be in really good shape and not being threatened by any kind of erosion. And we are hopeful that it also won't be threatened by any kind of fissures or cracks in the peninsula that it's on. So if we move over to the east side of the lantern room, there we go. So in the distance, you can see Manchester State Beach, and that is a 6-mile long beach. It's the longest white sand beach north of San Francisco. And that's a really good picture of it right there. And where the circle is the mouth of Padaha, which is the Pomo name for the Garcia River. So you cannot get to the Manchester State Beach from our property unless you want to swim across Padaha, which I don't recommend. But it is a really, really wonderful, beautiful beach. What you can also see from this angle is what we call the Gazebo Peninsula. And it's called that because there's a gazebo on it that was left over from the filming of Forever Young back in 1992. So having been a movie prop, it wasn't built to withstand the elements. So one of our board members several years ago took it on as a passion project to really shore it up and make it so that it would withstand the elements out there. And it's become an incredibly popular place for weddings, for proposals, and just for romantic get-togethers, or to take incredible shots of the lighthouse from that angle. Then if we move a little bit more to the south, there we go. Those are our 7 vacation cottages. They used to be the lightkeepers' homes. They were built in the 60s to replace the 4 Queen Anne Victorians that were built after the earthquake. And everything that you see on the other side of our fence, which you can kind of see right along there, over to the bluff of Padaha, and then as far south as we can see. And why don't you move over a little bit more to the southwest, Michael, so we can see down to the lands. There we go. So everything you're looking at right now is part of the 1,665-acre Point Arena Stornetta unit of the California Coastal National Monument. And it was named part of the National Monument in 2014. And at the time, it was the only land-based part of the monument. Everything else had been offshore, like the Channel Islands down around Santa Barbara. And New York Times put it number 3 on the list of 52 places you needed to see. And back then, people didn't think that the New York Times was fake news. So they actually came out and visited the lands. And they would turn around and say, hey, there's a lighthouse. Let's go check that out. And that was wonderful for us because our admissions went up by 66% between 2014 and 2016. And they are a wonderful neighbor. It is absolutely an amazing piece of property. You can actually walk all the way from the lighthouse to the city of Point Arena. It's about 4.5 miles along the bluffs. And the trails that go all along the bluffs are actually made by the cattle that were run by the Stornetta family on the lands for hundreds of years. So cows like the view as much as we do. We are also standing on the closest point on the continental United States to Hawaii. It's about 2,305 miles between that bunch of glass where the circle is right now. So if you're going to swim to Hawaii, you want to start at the Point Arena Lighthouse. But watch out for those great whites. They tend to like to chomp on people who are doing that. So that's what we've got up in the lantern room. Before we move down to the balcony, does anybody have any questions?
Hey, Mark, this is Joe Castile. I've got a question. Can you comment on those hold on for dear life handles I see on the outside?
You know, it's interesting that obviously they're all the way around the lantern room, but there's a catwalk out there. And actually, I'm the only one allowed out on the catwalk when I'm going to wash the windows of the lantern room, which I probably should have done before Mike took his videos. But we really don't know exactly why they're necessarily there. You know, I'll occasionally grab them when I'm doing the windows. If it's
I bet you do.
Well, they make me wear a fall harness too, something about OSHA regulations.
Mark, I have a question.
Sure.
This is Juan from San Jose. And
Hey, Juan.
Hey, Mark. Mark, with so many people having dedicated their lives to the operation and maintenance of the lighthouse, and so many families out there through the years, have there ever been any reports of paranormal activity at the lighthouse?
That's a great question, Juan. So I'm gonna give you multiple answers to that. I have not experienced any, and none of my staff has shared any with me. And we have frequently, particularly on night tours, people will ask that. And some of our board members said, well, we should go ahead and write a ghost story. And it's like, no. Unless it's real, we're not going to do it. However, last year, I had a producer call me and he wanted to come out and film a proposal video for a show that he wants to do, which is paranormal at lighthouses. So he came out and shot for a couple of days, and he brought his medium with him. And the medium definitely felt that there were spirits around. So that's one answer to your question. The second answer is there's a Napa Ghosts and Legends group that is a Ghostbusters kind of organization. And about 3 years ago, they did a Ghosts at the Lighthouse event where they took it over from 7 o'clock till midnight, and they all came out with their Ghostbusters paraphernalia and their spirit reader machines and Ouija boards, and they were in the museum, they were up in the tower, and they all felt that there were all kinds of spirits around the place. So I would just say, come on out for one of our night tours when we start doing them again, or stay in one of the cottages and see what you feel.
Just wanted to point out on this shot as well, you can see where the water's crashing over Arena Rock right here.
All right. Thank you, Michael. Yeah, that's how close Arena Rock is. And the last shipwreck on Arena Rock was in 1949. It was the Pacific Enterprise. And that was a coastal freighter that went aground on the rocks, and it foundered for 3 days, and then it broke apart and sank. And we've had several divers have given us artifacts that we have in the museum as well. So it's kind of an interesting thing to come out. And what Michael has done is taken us out onto the balcony, which we do make available to the guests who do tower tours when we're able to do them. And One of the more recent geological phenomena, it might be a little bit difficult to see, but if you'll stop moving for a second, yeah, right there where his arrow is, that is a sinkhole on the Gazebo Peninsula. And it opened up in January of 2019. And when it opened up, it was 10 feet in diameter and it was 16 feet from the bluff edge. As of today, it's about 60 feet, 65 feet in diameter, and about 2/3 of the bluff edge is gone.
I was
And-
actually up in the tower the day that collapsed, and I
Oh, you
was,
were? I didn't
Yeah.
know
yeah, I was giving a tour. I was up top there. I pointed out the sinkhole, and then my next tour came up. I went over, I looked at it, and that whole wall had caved in. And I had
Wow.
radioed down and said, "Hey, is it just me, or is the gazebo sinkhole getting a little bigger today?" And everybody ran out. Was like, "Oh my God, did you see it happen?" Not a bit. It was just in the blink of an eye. That whole wall caved in, and that grew about 4 times the size.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing to see the progression of that sinkhole. And it was actually caused by the water breaking through the bottom of the bedrock and scouring out inside until there was just a little plug left at the top, and then it fell in. And the water actually gets into that from a sea cave that's 40 feet away on the other side of the peninsula. So it's pretty amazing the power of the ocean out where we're at.
And earlier, Mark, I think I saw a hand raised. Maybe a question from Margarita?
Yeah, hi Mark. I'm Margarita.
Margarita.
I'm from Clear Lake in Lake County, and I was just wondering, how many visitors would you get like on a typical weekend?
You know, before COVID, we would average between probably 180 and 300, depending on the weekends. Obviously, summer weekends are busier. Our busiest weekend has historically always been Labor Day, followed by Memorial Day. But since COVID and we reopened to the public, we've been just having record attendance, which is wonderful because, you know, in March of last year, I was borrowing money just to pay our bills. And, you know, again, since we're a nonprofit, it's been just really gratifying to see how many people want to come out to this beautiful place, this clean environment, this safe place, and spend time with us. And we had 4 weeks ago, we had over 450 people over the 2-day weekend. So, and my staff is absolutely amazing because we only allow 20 people at a time in the museum. So they have to be out at the front door, kind of doing traffic control. And people have just been really, really wonderful about that. And obviously the associates will spin stories about the lighthouse and give people facts about it. We'll also direct them to enjoy the native plant garden, which is what Michael's showing you now. And one of the big features of the native plant garden is an adult gray whale skull that we got from Character State Park. It had washed up on the beach there. And we also have, as you can see to the right, vertebrae from it. And that tends to be real fascinating to our visitors. Did that answer your question, Margarita?
Yes, it did. Thank you.
Okay.
And it
One of
looks
the
like we
things,
have an-
go ahead.
Just another question in the chat from Diane Plant, another Lake County Chamber of Commerce Board Director. She's asking, are reservations needed to visit the lighthouse?
Not to visit the light station store, indoor museum, and outdoor museum. We are open from 10 a.m. to 3:30 p.m., 7 days a week. The only days that we are closed are Thanksgiving and Christmas. And you don't need reservations. Just to remind people, we are not currently offering tours of the tower. We hope to resume those at some point in the near future. But the 23-acre outdoor museum is absolutely wonderful. You can roam our entire grounds. And one of the centerpieces of the outdoor museum is a stone labyrinth that was built last year by 2 master stonemasons, and it was all done by hand. And it's out near our entryway, which also features the only one of its kind in the world, a stone entry fence that looks like from a distance a coastal picket fence, but when you get closer, it's actually got posts of Mendocino blue shale, and then the pickets are mica schist from the Mojave Desert. And it's all held together by compression and gravity. There's no concrete, there's no steel pins holding it together. It was done by the master stonemason John Shaw Remington from Canada, and it is absolutely stunning. It's definitely worth it.
You're talking to you.
And Mark, how long does it take to walk up the lighthouse?
Depending on how many breaks you take on the landings, it generally is between 5 and 10 minutes from the very beginning.
My best time is 2 minutes.
Yeah, well, you're a lot younger than me. I call it the original Stairmaster.
Nice.
So one of the things that's in the picture you're looking at now is part of our native plant garden. Is a big anchor that was donated to us by Jay Baker from Wallala. And he found it while diving. We don't know what ship it was from, but given the size and the style, it was almost certainly from one of the mid to late 1800s, 3 or 4 master schooners that used to ply the coastal waters. So if there are no more questions, I would just like to say that I truly appreciate this unique opportunity that was presented to me by Amanda and Mike. Very excited to be able to do a virtual tour of the place I love so much, and that I can't do physical tours except for the people who are staying with us or who are members up the tower. I will definitely look forward to being able to resume our tower tours, hopefully in the next few months. And I would encourage you to come out and visit us, escape the heat. As most of you know, if you're local, and I'm local, I mean Lake County and Mendocino and Humboldt counties, September, October is the best time of year on the coast. And so if you want to come out and just see a beautiful place, feel safe, and enjoy an amazing slice of history on the coast, please come visit the Point Arena Light Station.
Thank you so much, Mark, for this wonderful tour. Thank you. And I'm also seeing C. Saunders, who's just joined us, and I'm seeing some youth on with us. Did you guys get a chance to see up in the tower? You did? Oh, great. Do you have any
Hi.
questions for Mark? Hi.
Hi.
Hi, well, thank you. Yeah, sorry for jumping on last minute. We just got the email. I was checking my emails just a minute ago, but we're in the town of Winters, and we were at the lighthouse just this weekend, staying in the Lighthouse Keepers Inn, and we had such an amazing time. I think Natalie had a question about Arena Mina.
Oh,
No?
Yeah, how's she doing?
she's doing great. She was actually sitting in front of Assistant Keeper's House 3 most of today because it was sunny out there, and she loves to be in the sunshine.
Yeah, I think she was. I think I saw in the on the weekend.
I'm glad you got to see her. She is our guest relations manager and rodent control specialist.
How's Tassie doing?
Tassie's doing great. Thank you for asking. She's actually home here with me, but I've got her out on the deck because she was barking earlier. So I'm being asked by these wonderful kids about 2 of our 4-legged guest relations managers. So we have Tassie, the lighthouse dog, who is a rescue Great Pyrenees. And we have Arena Mina, who is a beautiful little gray and white cat that was abandoned out here, 4 years ago now. And she finally let us pick her up, and we adopted her, and she has been our little rock star kitty ever since. And one of our guests, Elizabeth Reedon, fell in love with her and actually wrote a children's book about her story, and we sell it in the gift store. And it is our best-selling book of all time. So when you come out, keep your eyes peeled for Arena Mina and Tassi the lighthouse dog. And I'm so glad you guys stayed with us. I hope you had a great time and you come back again.
Amanda, I have a question.
Sure.
Thank you so much, Mark. This is a wonderful, detailed program. I think it will be great that it will be available to the young people through the school system or whatever, however you plan to do it. I'm wondering if it would be available to others like people not in California right now. Will you have a link to the recording?
Yeah,
I absolutely will, Rosemary. Once Amanda makes it available, I will put it up on our website.
That'll be great. I'm very interested because my father-in-law actually was the light keeper of a very important lighthouse on Ikaria, which is an island in Greece that was important for the shipping during the Second World War. And I was able to take my son there when he was a little boy, and now I have a granddaughter. I would love to be able to take her there, but if she isn't going to be able to go to Greece, I would love to be able to bring her to California to see another lighthouse. I love lighthouses.
Well, I hope you bring her to see ours, Rosemary. Thank you very much for that.
And great question, Rosemary. Thank you. We will also have the recording, and also the model itself will be available on the Lake County Chamber of Commerce website. So if you go onto the events tab, and underneath you'll see Year of Youth, and that's where they'll be. And along with our next 5 destinations. So we've got a couple of options to see it again.
Thank you.
And I would also just like to mention that we do have on our website, which is pointarenalighthouse.com, we have the virtual tour of the tower that Mike Chandler put together. So if you ever want to revisit it, you're more than welcome to just go to the homepage, and about halfway down, there's a picture of the tower with its skin peeled off. And you just click on that and that'll take you right into the virtual tour, and you can walk up and down the tower like we did today.
Great.
And why don't we hear from the Wizard of Oz, the great Mike Chandler, who just made all of that possible.
Just wanted to say thank you all for coming. This was a bit of a dream of mine when I first started shooting virtual tours, to be able to do something like this. And was really happy for the opportunity to spend a year working out at the Point Arena Lighthouse before the pandemic hit, and then create this virtual tour to be able to share with everyone. And I'm really happy this has all come together as planned. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Michael. We're going to have future tours as well. September 29th is going to be the Taylor Observatory, the planetarium here in Lake County in Kelseyville. So we're really excited about that. So for everyone that's also tuning in from outside of Lake County, you're welcome to stay up to date with more tours on the Lake County Chamber of Commerce website, and also Michael's website, Third Eye Visuals. So I'd love to just share a little bit too. When Michael and I actually first met, that was 2 years ago, the very first conversation we had, he actually told me about 3D virtual field trips and how that was one of his dreams, was to do that. So it's really exciting to see us both now, a couple years later, making that a reality. So thank you so much for bringing your talent and your genius to Lake County and beyond. And thank you so much, Mark, for touring us through. It was really, really informative and really interesting. Thank you.
Well, thank you. It was a great opportunity, and I love being able to introduce the lighthouse to people who can't get out there right now. And I couldn't have done it without Mike.
Thanks to all three of you.
Thank you. And anyone's welcome to just chime in with something or ask a question.
Well, I will give Arena Mina a tummy rub from the Saunders family, and I will give Tassie a scratch behind the ears as soon as I'm done here.
I'm also keeping my eyes open for other interesting spaces to add to our virtual field trips. So if you know of anything or think of anything that you'd like to see, please let us know.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you for joining us. It was really nice to see you.
There's another lighthouse in Mendocino County, Mike.
That's true, Mike.
Yeah,
I have
I'd love to
connections.
do all of them along the whole coast, actually. So if you know any connections that you can get me into them, let me know.
Thanks for pointing that out, Juan. What Juan was referring to is the Point Cabrillo Light Station, which is in Casper, which is between Mendocino and Fort Bragg. And she is a third order Fresnel lens lighthouse. She still has her original lens up in the tower. And she sits upon a Point Cabrillo State Park. So she's part of the state park system. But I would be more than happy to make introductions to you, Michael, if you'd like to go up there.
That'd be awesome. Anybody else have any questions for me?
Or me? Or Amanda?
Anybody?
Yeah, Michael.
Bye.
What other places have you shot and recorded?
I've done a few. Excuse me. The Taylor Observatory is going to actually be our next virtual field trip. And I've done a lot of different type of businesses and stuff to be able to take a brick and mortar type of store and put it online where you can actually tour it, and done a bunch of real estate as well. But the virtual field trips are definitely the one I love to do the most.
Oh, wow, nice.
Yeah, we know Michael's also done the Middletown Art Center.
Oh yeah.
Also based in Lake County. Both Michael and I wear two hats here. We're also involved with the Middletown Art Center. I'm the president of the board and Michael's on the board. And so we've actually captured our last 4 exhibits with the 3D model camera. And so that's really cool because it's a unique new way that we're actually able to archive our exhibits rather than putting them up and taking them down. Now we get to have them stay around virtually. So if you're curious about them, you can also check out the middletownartcenter.org and go to our virtual exhibits, and you'll get to see some more. Well, if there's not any more, go for it, Michael.
Oh, I just put I put the link in wrong. I just corrected that in the chat. middletownartcenter.org.
Nice. Thank you. Well, thank you everyone for joining us for this. Oh, did we have one more question?
Oh, yeah. Hi, it's was actually the supervisor of construction for the original tower, and I have had a really great visit up there in January of 2020. So I met Mark and stayed in the keeper's apartment after I had made that discovery during family research. So this was great to see this. And the other, I was thinking about Juan's question about the handholds out on the outside of the lantern room. And one of the things I've seen archival photos and read about keepers who there's also something on the top outside of the lantern room. It's a railing. It's called a ladder rail, and they would take a small metal, like a metal ladder, and it would actually hang out there so that they could get up to the top of the outside, and there was one on the inside too. And so they were, you can imagine in the wind, them hanging out there, standing on that ladder, and they would use those handholds when they were cleaning the outside of the windows. And then they had, like I said, they had a ladder that they used on the inside, because it's, when you're in there, it's pretty tall from the outside. So, and the other thing that I was remembering was how when the first tower was taken down after the earthquake, they were like shoveling the debris in quotes, like the those bricks and whatever they couldn't reuse, they just pushed over the side there. Yeah. into the ocean. I mean, it's incredible to think about that now, where we reuse absolutely everything that we can, and even things that that you wouldn't imagine we could. But at the base of the current tower, there's this amazing piece, which was, I don't know if it was the lintel, it was some aspect of the original tower that was found by, I think it was Bill Owens, perhaps found that. Maybe that story, Mark. But he looked down one day when he was just checking out the surroundings, and saw something that didn't look like just a rock, and it was one of the original pieces, just something that'd be shoved over. And I remember just being so moved when I was there, in that January, because that would have been the original piece that was there when my ancestor was there during the building. So,
Kristen, I think what you're talking about is the lintel that has on it the name of the engineer who designed it, who was Lieutenant Colonel L.H. Christensen.
Yeah, Williamson. Yeah, Colonel
Williamson. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, that's okay. And it's got the year,
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really, really special, just to realize it was there at the beginning, and it's still there now.
Well, when you're up in the tower and you look to the east, in the first cutback on the bluff leading out to the Gazebo Peninsula, that's where they tossed all of that stuff. And the original set of concrete stairs that were the beginning of the access into the original tower are still down there.
Really?
Yeah, because they haven't washed away because they're too damn big.
I'll have to look for that when I'm up there next.
Yeah, look me up. I'll take you out and show you.
Yeah, thank you. I hope to be back in next January. It's coming January.
Well, good. We'll spend some time.
Excellent. Thank you.
Well, if there's not any more questions, we'll take us to a formal close, and everyone's welcome to stay on and continue to chat or ask some questions. But really want to thank the team here. Thank you so much, Mark Hancock, Executive Director of the Point Arena Lighthouse, for being here with us. Thank you so much, Michael Chandler, for being the Wizard of Oz behind this and bringing us innovative tech. Thank you to the Lake County Chamber of Commerce for providing the platform for this Year of Youth project. And yeah, this video was recorded and archived, and this will be made available to youth in Lake County to be able to visit a new destination without having to even get into a car and go anywhere. So we're really excited to start this series, and we'll be continuing it at least until the end of this year. So we'll be visiting a new destination each month. So thank you so much. And thank you to the chamber members that were on. We had Lisa Wilson, who's our Vice President of the Chamber Board. We had Bobby Dutcher, who is our President, and Joe Castile, past President, and Diane Plant, who's our Financial Director. So yeah, thank you everyone for being on, and feel free to ask any questions and continue to chat.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us.
Bye. Thank you so much.
Yes, and thank you, Margarita, for being on. Margarita is interning with the Year of Youth program, and she was kind of holding our youth torch here for us. So our next goal is to make sure that we really get this to youth in Lake County so that they know that this resource is available. So
Yes, for sure. Okay, have a good night.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank
Thanks.
you.
Night.
Yes, thank you, everyone. Great job.
thank you. Nice. I love your backdrop, Michael, with the original light. I loved how Mark described it the other night of it looks like a large alien face.
Yeah,
Looking back.
yeah. From certain angles, it definitely looks like it's gonna come and get you.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for staying on with us here. And we never got a chance to hear your Colorado friends' music, but it looks like it's good. And it's fun to have a little bit of ambiance there with them.
They're having band practice, and they were gonna try to tune in. So I'm sure they're kind of playing and kind of watching it out of the corners of their eyes.
Nice. Nice.
Awesome.
Mhm. All right. Well, without further ado, I think we're gonna close it down. But if anybody wants to chime in, I know that looks like Kimberly O'Connor, you're tuning in from Lake County. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for all the folks that joined in from outside of Lake County. That was really cool to see. All right. Well, Michael, great work.
Thanks so much.
Thanks.
Have a good night.
Thank you. You too. Bye, everyone. Thanks for tuning in.
Bye, thank you.
Bye. Thanks.